Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is about how you can stop brand X, which is and insert your most feared competitor's name in there, from poaching your best lawyers. I'm Gary Allen, and I'll be your host for this webinar. This webinar is approved for ALA credit for human resources credits as indicated on this slide. So those of you who are here from ALA can get those credits. I wanted to give a little plug for the organization. We're big fans of the Association of Legal Administrators. This is where people who run law firms, sort of small to mid-size, but also larger, congregate for a community and also for education. The ALA offers a certificate of legal management that is pretty unique in the country. So for those of you or anyone is interested in ALA membership, just put your name in the chat and we'll put you in touch with your local chapter. So before we get started, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I am a recently retired 35-year practicing attorney in a mid-sized firm. Early in my career, I experienced a lot of pain from bad business practices, including two firms that imploded while I was there. One of them leaving me with no job on a Saturday afternoon and a 6-month-old baby to feed. So I was fortunate to land at a firm with really good business practices, a very successful firm financially, and experienced the joy and just all of the benefits of that. And it gave me a passion to help make law firms into better businesses. And along the way, I have founded Lean Law, which is a legal billing software company that we say is the gateway to those financial improvements. I'm really excited to have with us today Dr. Sharon Abrahams. She is a coach of managing partners and also a national level HR expert. There's a lot on here on the slide about her. So welcome, Sharon. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Oh, I never wanna talk about myself. I like talking about other people. But Gary, thank you. Thank you for inviting me for part 2 of our series, and I'm, pleased to be here, and I would like to let, the people online know that I'm a 30-plus year member of the ALA. In fact, I got an email today that said, "Thank you. It's your 32nd anniversary as an ALA member." So,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah. I'm not that old. I started when I was 10.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Sharon, and we'll look forward to learning a lot more about how you can help law firms and particularly managing partners to navigate some difficult issues. So what we're going to talk about today, first, I'm just going to give a little background, which I always do in these webinars, to talk about the difference that best-in-class financial performance can create for your firm. We call it the $8 million difference because that's the difference between how an average lawyer performs over the course of their career and a best-in-class financial performer. So hopefully any lawyers on the line will pay close attention because that's not a difference most of us can afford not to take advantage of. And what it is it's a simple system. I mean, I lived this for 30 years, and it really begins with efficient processes, then follows with having the right kind of productive people in your firm, and then a strong product market fit in your market. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, our focus today is with Dr. Abrahams and with Sharon is to how to train and retain your best lawyers. So let me just go quickly through the $8 million difference. As I said, the gateway is efficient processes. And the way you get into that is you begin by mapping the most important workflows in your firm. There probably aren't a ton of them. Maybe it's, 5 to 10 at most. The ones you're doing every day. So that's going to be billing or, at least very frequently, and they take a significant amount of time. That's your billing. That's certain types of document production. That's client intake, things like that. Decide how you want to implement those. Then we strongly recommend that you start by building on the industry standards that you're already using. For small to mid-sized firms, that is almost always Microsoft 365, um, or certainly Microsoft products, and you will soon all be on Microsoft 365 and QuickBooks Online from a financial perspective. Then you add legal customization. That's tools like Lien Law. There are other options, of course. And then once you've got that workflow in place, you need to communicate it in a way that, everyone understands it and uses it. You've got that in place, then you can turn to your people and create a productive culture, get the right sort of compensation system in place, which is something we'll be talking about in detail today. And then you got to have a succession plan in your law firm, because you're not going to attract the kind of people you want if the firm is going to go away when the founder retires. Then finally, strong product market fit. So that begins with listening to your customers. And there's a process called design thinking, which we'll do webinars about later on, about how to go through that process, listen to what your customers really need, create an offering and pricing that are a strong fit with those ideal customers of yours, and then to market it appropriately. You do those things, you can, which is very simple. We call it keep it simple. Um, then you are in a position to achieve best in class financial performance and have a much more rewarding career. So just want to let you know that this is one of a significant list of law firm of webinars about the best in class performance. We've done this is the sixth one that we've done over the last few months. There's a whole series coming up. I won't point them all out to you, but twice a month ongoing. So we've got things like AI and about security in your firm, about how to, case studies of efficiency, um, marketing, more on Microsoft 365, law firm accounting, all the things that you need to know in order for 2025 to be the year that your firm achieves best in class performance. And then finally, we're going to give you a link at the end of the webinar to download our financial report card. And that will, you can put in some basic metrics into your firm and see how you're doing relative to best in class performance. And that will also help inform your strategy. So please take advantage of that. We've gotten really good reviews on that little widget. So now let's get into the main event. So this is about how you can stop Brand X. And again, that's your most feared competitor from poaching your best lawyers. We're going to do this as a role play today. So I'm going to play the role of managing partner. And I work in a mid-sized firm, just like I did all those years. And I'm going to call my coach, Sharon Abrahams, and get some coaching on this topic that's keeping me, and I think a lot of others in law firms, up at night, is how do I hang on to my best lawyers? So ring-a-ling, Sharon, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me about these difficult issues we're going through in my firm.
Well, Gary, I'm so glad that we were able to squeeze this call in. Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So just starting out, so I'm worried about our compensation model, that it might not be competitive enough. So how do you structure compensation to make our lawyers feel valued and less tempted by brand X's offers?
Well, that's a difficult question because every law firm is uniquely different. But I will share with you that money does not keep people happy. There's a management philosophy called the hygiene theory, which is a really outdated title. But basically, what it says, there are certain factors that keep people happy and certain factors that keep people unhappy. So salary tends to not be in the happiness category. It happens to be in the unhappiness category. So throwing money at somebody isn't necessarily going to keep them. But throwing money at somebody might get them to move only if it's a significant amount. Is $5,000 more going to change somebody's life? Probably not. But 10,000, 20,000, and keep going up? Yes, that could actually change somebody's life. It could be tuition payment for a private school. It could, it could
Mm,
be a new car or a new house. So when you think about compensation and how you want to do your compensation model, you have to look at your marketplace and really assess who your competitors. Brand X could be more than one name, right? Could be
absolutely.
firms
Yeah.
that are in the same area of law that
Hmm.
you're in if you're a very specialized firm, other boutiques. And it depends on the model that you use. If we're talking about associates, it might be lockstep, where they make what they make because of the year of practice that they have. Or it could be merit based, where you change it every year based on successes that they've had. To know whether or not you are within the market, I highly suggest that you do a market review. And we talked about ALA right at the beginning. You mentioned ALA. One of the great resources that ALA has is a salary survey. So
Mm.
that's a place to look for salary information.
Oh, interesting. Is that lawyers as
It's
well
on
as staff or?
it's on staff, and I do believe they have a version that might be lawyer focused. If there
Ah,
isn't
okay.
one lawyer focused for the type of law that you practice, then NALP, NALP, National Association of Law Placement, they also do salary surveys, as well as Vault that does
Mm,
salary surveys. So I would recommend that you start there. You can't make any decisions without data. So collecting data
right, right.
would
Okay,
be the
so
first place to start.
there's a question I've had for a long time that I'm going to spring on you here, which is talk about the antitrust considerations about those salary surveys, because I've always been confused about what you can and cannot share about salaries.
Right. So it always for it to be not within the antitrust, a couple things. One, the salary surveys sometimes are completely anonymous because they
Mm,
know that people won't answer if there's no anonymity to it. The second is it's over a range. If you would pay somebody that is a first year, which is 1 through 4 years, or 5 through 7 years, it's less likely to send up antitrust flags. I will tell you that within the ALA, they are very keen on watching antitrust issues because even
hmm.
in my own local chapter, if somebody asks a question that is related to comp or benefits that might be an antitrust issue, a flag comes out right away and people are asked not to respond. So
Got it.
you'd have to go back and look at the quality of the survey, and they usually give you that background information.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Yes. So, are there any other considerations that are different between associates and partners?
With salary? Yeah.
Yeah.
Associates are employees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Of
And
course.
so
Yeah.
you can pay them whatever you want and they're at will. And income partner or non-equity partners are also employees. So it's really only when you move to the equity level that it changes.
Hmm.
So, depending on the state, because I don't know where people are coming from, depending on your state, there are rules about being at-will employee versus, partnership rules and all of that. So, yes, compensation is very different, when you're looking at the expectations that your firm has put together. If you do performance evaluations based on criteria, that's a whole other hour, by the way, so I can't even answer your question, any more specifically.
Okay. Well, let's move on, and I'm sure we'll find some other ways to dive into that. So one of the things I've heard is that it's just not about how much we pay, and you touched on this, but also how we pay. So what's the impact of structuring your compensation thoughtfully, and how does that discourage poaching?
Okay. So I will be right up front and say that I do a lot of law firm counseling and coaching and consulting, but I don't deal with compensation. So
Mm,
I will talk very generally about compensation, and then if anybody had very specific, I would turn them towards somebody who really delves into compensation. So on the associate side, which is where I have a lot more experience with, it's there's what I said before, there's the lockstep policy where you just get paid what you get paid, and then there's the merit. So lockstep, there are firms that still do lockstep. They have really kind of fallen out of favor with a lot of associates because they want to get paid on merit, especially those that are high achievers and they bill more hours and they add more to the firm. They would like to be paid more. So you have your salary and then you have your bonus. And so salaries can be more lockstep, and bonus allows that firm to then say, but you really were a high achiever and we're going to reward you for the things that you did that were outside the box. So having that bonus ability can make a big difference if you're a lockstep firm. Now, on the partner side, whether it's an income partner or an equity partner, then you have to really take into consideration, are they bringing in business? Now, associates might be bringing in business at your firm, but typically associates are not required to bring in business. So that would be a criteria that depending on how your firm chooses to structure the compensation, are you going to do, origination credits? Are you just basing it on realization? Are you doing it on collections? So there's a lot of data, a lot of information that firms now have at their fingertips using software like Lean Law has and other products that are out there, being able to get this data and being able to compensate on a more objective related to the numbers as well as then the subjective, which some people push back on because
mhm,
who is the person making the decisions? Is it just one person or is it a compensation committee? And all of
right.
that would need to be reviewed and looked at. And I will say, for those of you that have any educational background, you've heard of the word a rubric. A rubric is how teachers grade things. And actually, if law firms used rubrics in what they're looking at the partner level, how they grade
Hmm.
things, and then can decide compensation based on those types of models.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I lived in a world for 30 years that was purely objective compensation for partners, a little bit of subjective, kind of Christmas bonus type of compensation for associates. And it was very freeing for me. I mean, that was a really great fit because, you knew what the rules were. And there was no politicking in the back room or, you know, um, no
Okay.
subjectivity to go, for that you had to worry about because to me that created a lot of, you know, politics and
It does.
it broke down trust.
It does. However, if you're a partner that gets compensated completely objectively, how much you bill, how much work you bring in, the value of the work, that's fantastic. But what if you are also the head of an office or the head of a practice group and you have to coach and mentor and train and facilitate the work of others? You don't get compensated for that in that type of model. And so there are people who want to be paid or rewarded for the work that they're doing outside of the things that can be objectively measured. And that's where it becomes an issue in
Yeah,
a completely
yeah,
objective model.
yeah. That was in our firm. There were certain people who received a salary for those, like the managing partner got a salary for being managing partner, but we didn't try to incentivize those roles. It was just, if you'd had to do enough work, you get something for it. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Um, so now when looking when we've invested in training, I want to talk about training for a minute. So we've invested in this, and we do provide training, but it doesn't feel like it's building loyalty. So what kind of training and mentoring actually make lawyers want to stay with our firm?
It's a great question. And I would go back and press you and say, well, what kind of training are you offering? Because it really depends on what it is you're teaching. If you're doing, straight up CLE approvable substantive law, that's great. It makes me a better lawyer to learn the Securities Act of 34. Yeah, that's great. But that's just knowledge, right? And CLE training is pretty much just knowledge. But what is going to make me a better practitioner? What's going to make me more productive in the work that I do? What type of training, education, or mentoring is going to make me love the practice of law? And
Hmm.
and so some of this falls into the what's called the soft skills area, how to work in a team, how to delegate to others, how to train and develop others, how to bring people along. And so there's the legal substantive law that helps me with my knowledge, but things like moot courts and practicing opens and closings and directs and crosses, those have much more value than just understanding what the law says because it's making me better. It's like dance lessons. Let's just think about that. If you watched a video, which a lot of CLE is just video of how to do the waltz, it's
Right.
lovely. But until you get on the floor and you practice it, like in a moot court environment, right? That's when you really develop the skills. And so when you look at your training and development, you have to think about the fact that people learn in a lot of different ways. Some people can read to learn, some people can watch to learn, and some people are what's called kinesthetic. They need to do it to learn it. And so
Hmm.
if your training isn't touching all of those areas, then it may not be hitting everybody that you want it to hit.
Yeah, one of the things that we've experienced as a mid-size or small to mid-size firm is, compared to a big firm, we can give people direct experience sooner rather than later. In fact, we had one partner whose uh, approach to training when someone would arrive on their first day is to say, "Here's your file. You've got a court date at 2 o'clock."
That's the sink or swim method, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but some of our lawyers, that's they feel like that's being thrown into the fire too
Yeah,
soon, and I worry that drives some people away who are going to be really good attorneys. So, what's the right balance between that sort of independence and supporting and training and letting people do things in moot court in terms of whether people develop loyalty and stick around.
right. So, first of all, every person's different. I made that comment before. So, some
Hmm.
people, when you hand them the file and say you have a court date at 2, go, yeah, right? They're like, yeah, I'm a risk taker. I will jump in. I will figure it out. I will do it. And other people are like, and it can cause incredible anxiety and stress. So part of it is knowing the people that you are hiring, right?
Hmm.
Bringing them on board. And we talked about this last time, right? Bringing on board people that can take that file and run with it. And that's knowing that you have the right people. But what creates the loyalty is not the law firm. Law firm in itself doesn't necessarily create loyalty. It's the connection to the individuals. People can walk away from a law firm. It's
Hmm.
much harder to walk away from a person. So that supervising attorney who hands the file to that new person and says, "I'll spend 20 minutes with you or 30 or 2 hours, whatever,
Hmm.
um, and get you prepped and ready to go," that begins to create loyalty. They're not really throwing me into the deep end. They're giving me a quick doggy paddle lesson, before they throw me into the water, right? And then
Hmm.
after says, "How did it go?" Or, "I'm gonna come and watch you, and then I will afterwards give you feedback on how well you did." Or if you timing wise, they can't do that, you're gonna come back and you share with me what happened. and I'm going to give you feedback on that. And that's the training and development. And what happens then is the connection to that partner that has facilitated my learning, facilitated my ability to grow and develop. That's much harder to leave. So when a firm has an environment, and I think we'll get to this in a minute, that creates the security that there's somebody there to catch you, but the ability to put you up on the trapeze and say, "Fly," that's a great balance, and you need to find that. People don't wanna walk away from that because it's very
Right.
exciting. You go into those large firms where you will make 100,000 more dollars, but you are just literally thrown into a pit, and you don't
Yeah.
have anybody necessarily who's gonna do
Or,
that for you. In
or
a
you're
small
writing memos for 8 years.
Yes, document reviews. Document
Right.
reviews for 4
Oh,
years in a row, right?
oh, that
Lots of due diligence.
so glad I didn't do that. So this sounds like, I mean, in short, mentoring is the the right, the strongest approach. It's,
Right,
for
and
lack of a better word.
let me define the difference between training and mentoring, okay? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people kind of lump them together. Training is good quality training is a thought out program that has objectives. At the end of this hour or the end of this program, the a student or attendee will be able to do, these 4 objectives, right? That's true training. That's really understanding how to put together curriculum, content, and learning goals. Mentoring is, let's talk about your training. Let's talk
Mhm.
about how you did. What was your experience? What did you stumble on? And that one-on-one, very specific, I'm going to help you develop. So you
Mhm.
see, there is very much a difference.
Okay. And are you suggesting both?
Oh
Or,
gosh, yes.
yeah,
Yes,
so
yes,
it's a training and
yes,
mentoring.
yes.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
so training, not all law firms can afford training. They, to small and mid-sized firms don't really have the bandwidth to hire a full-time professional development slash CLE administrative type person to do that. So
Right.
that's
Mhm.
where products like, and I don't know if I should say these, but like Practicing Law Institute or Westlaw CLE, those are online training programs that you could send people to. There's, NITA, National Institute for Trial
Yeah.
Advocacy, very expensive, so you can send somebody to outside training, and then come back and do mentoring with them. So there
Mhm.
are always options. Local law schools have programs. A lot of people don't look at their local law schools as an education. "Oh, I'm done with law school." Are you kidding? They do seminars, they do programs. Um, so
Boy,
there's
if
lots of
law schools became kind of lifelong learning places, that would multiply their value.
yes, it
But
really would.
yeah, I think you're right. Most people don't see them that way, and they may not see themselves that way.
Yes, but some
Yeah.
do. You have to find those.
Yes. Yes. So there is a question here, from Matthew, which is, could you do this with an outside coach? Is that an effective from a loyalty perspective?
Yes. Okay. So there are the large firms now are hiring their internal coaches. But before it became a thing to do internal coaching, and when I was in law firms, I created my own, I called them super mentors. That was the title that I used. I knew which partners loved, let's say, writing. And I
Mm.
would go to them and I say, "I have an associate who needs help with, brief writing or, whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
Will you be a super mentor to them?" So they're not necessarily in the practice group, they're not necessarily in the office or whatever, but I created that relationship. So it was training as well as mentoring at the same time. So yes, to an outside coach, that person is outside the individual's practice group, but maybe still within the firm. All firms have super mentors there. You need to find them. Now, aside to that,
Ah,
I am a coach. Now, I'm not going to coach a lawyer on substantive legal skills because I am not that type of coach. but yes, you can find outside writing coaches. I know a gentleman, he just retired, and he was a writing coach in a law firm for many years, left and then did it on his own. And he literally, I think, retired at the beginning of this year. So he's not available anymore. But there are writing coaches, there are negotiation skills coaches. There's not so much the substantive legal coaches. That's where the Practicing Law Institute and the Westlaws come in, where you're going to learn content, legal content. Um,
Right.
but a regular outside coach can help with things and like the things that I do, which are leadership skills, delegation skills, working better together, how to give feedback, how to work with difficult clients. That those things coaches can really help you with, unless you have somebody who's very specific, has a legal skill in an area that you want to enhance
Right.
somebody's knowledge or confidence in.
Right. That makes sense. The soft skills you get zero training on in law school. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I I want our team to feel like they're part of something special in our firm. So what can we do to build a strong culture that keeps lawyers committed and loyal when the other firms come knocking?
Okay,
We want the little glue for the
right.
firm.
I love that. All right. And you said my team. So let's
Yeah.
define my team, because your team could be a small little practice group. It could be an office of a multi office law firm, or it could be the whole law firm.
Hmm.
So depending on who you are, you have to define, what does team mean? Team mean could be me as the partner, two associates, a paralegal, and an assistant, a
Right.
team of five. Right. So it's a much easier to be sticky, the glue, for a team of this size than it would be for a larger team. Easier, but not impossible. There are
Yeah.
law firms that have great longevity. People never leave those law firms. So
Yeah.
you have to look at, really what you want to do is a culture analysis. What is the culture
Mm-hmm.
of the firm and what keeps people here? So I will tell you that my very first law firm that I worked with, which was in the 19, where some people weren't even born that maybe are on the call, their mantra was, "We work hard and we play hard." And I mean, back in the 1990s, their billable, requirement for bonus was 2,200 hours. That's back
Ouch.
when law firms were still billing 1,800. So this firm worked hard, but man, we played. We had so much fun. We had great, events, retreats, and office get-togethers and picnics, and bands that the attorneys and staff put bands together, and we really played hard. Some people hated that law firm because they didn't want
Yeah.
to build
Well,
those
what I
hours.
like about it is it's transparent because there are a
Yes,
lot of law firms that would go, oh no, 1800 is fine. But then when you got there, you really were supposed to be working 2200.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, this law firm has always been transparent. So the point I'm just making here is to create the loyalty in your team, or to the firm as whole, or to an
Yeah.
office. You have to think of what is your culture. I'm actually working with a firm right now that, in just working with them, I can't figure out what their culture is. They're going binga, 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 bing. I can't get them focused. I can't get them to make decisions. It's three managing partners, or not three managing partners, three named partners, and that's it, three equity partners, and that's it. And they're just all going in their own direction. And they want me to come in and help them with the culture and the training and all this stuff, but I can't get them to make decisions. And
Mm,
so that tells me about their culture, right?
right. That is the culture. The
That is the
chaos is
culture.
the
Cha
culture.
Perfect word. The chaos is the culture, and
Yeah.
that's why they have turnover.
Yeah.
So,
I could totally
because
see that. Have you
right,
told them that chaos is the culture?
it's coming, it's
Yeah.
coming. But so in your practice group, whatever that is, and let's focus on, like, the 5 group, or
Yeah.
it could be
Okay.
25 people in your practice group.
Sure. Hmm.
Are you doing the things we talked about? Are you training the people so they have the skills to do their job? Are you mentoring the people so they build the confidence to do their job? Are they receiving feedback? And feedback is both constructive feedback, fixing the problems, as well as motivational feedback. Good
Hmm.
job. That was amazing what you did. You're such an important member of this team. All of these things help build that stickiness. A child wants approval from their parent, right? And
Right.
so
Hmm.
whoever is the leader of the group is those adults. but the
Right.
but no matter how old we are, we still want to be told we are doing a good job. So those things create that stickiness that you mentioned it before, transparency, right? Open communication, being available. Um, all of those things create that stickiness or that glue that hold people together. If I'm an associate that works remote 100% of the time, what is my stickiness? What is keeping me in there? If I don't have any desire to come to the office, something's missing.
Right. Right. So I wonder how do you identify and highlight the unique aspects of your culture? I mean, if you really, let's say you're not in total chaos and you may have some ideas about it, or maybe, so how do you go about really making a culture cohesive?
Well, actions. Actions speak louder than words.
Okay.
Words are we put on the screen, we put on our website, we put in the lunchroom, we post on the wall, like our core values, right? Our firm's core
Hmm.
values, which is a wonderful, very good exercise. But if I can look at those core values and say, we don't really live by these core values, then they
Right.
mean nothing. It's it's walking the talk. It's doing the things that you say are important. If it is the mentoring, if it is the coaching, you not only actually demonstrate it, but you share that you've demonstrated. You do shout outs on a regular basis. Matthew went to court today and, swung for the fences and he won, you know, showing pride in each other's work. Just all of that creates an environment that people want to come to and having fun. And
Hmm.
having fun doesn't mean going to a happy hour at 5 o'clock on a Friday, because some people don't wanna do that, they wanna go home, but it's having a pizza party in the office to get people to come together, but not to do training or mentoring, but it's to do something fun, to share what's going on in each other's lives. It's to have perfect timing, next week is Thanksgiving. Every law firm should be doing their own little in-office
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They should do that because and they
Hmm.
should do that for this, and they should have a holiday party. These are the things that, if they're done in the right way with the right attitude, says, "This is a fun place to work." The first firm that I mentioned that I said played hard, worked hard and played hard, I was at that firm for almost 9 years, and I honestly would never have left that firm
Mm.
if what did I say about money? If I hadn't gotten headhunted and they don't freak out. They practically doubled my salary.
Wow.
What I learned was how underpaid I was.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And so there was so even though I loved the firm and I felt very connected to the firm, but practically doubling my salary literally changed
Oh,
my life.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
of course I left.
Yeah.
Um, but I wouldn't have, because I
Hmm.
liked what we did. We played hard and we worked hard, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot about relationships, and I'm hearing about trust.
Yes.
Yeah. So that if you're building those things, it sounds like you're building a cohesive culture.
Yes, and I think the word trust is really super important. Um,
Hmm.
there's the book, The Trusted Advisor, which is for lawyers to read about how to become trusted advisors to their clients. Very good book written by David Maister. But we wanna create trust in our team, right? We want our people to trust us. That means we have their back, we keep our promises, we do what we say, and it's not in it for us, right?
Right.
We're in it for them.
Right. Okay. That's super helpful. Let's move on to another question. So, we obviously productivity is important to our bottom line. Um, but I don't want lawyers to feel like they're being micromanaged when it comes to that. So how can we track productivity in a way that supports their growth and keeps them here without, just becoming nebbishes. That's a
Well, unfortunately, productivity is based on numbers, right?
Mhm.
The data analysis, if you look at major corporations, they measure literally everything. How long you're on the phone, if you do sales, how much sales, how long did it take you to do the sales from
Yeah.
beginning to end, all that kind of stuff. So in a law firm, we know the number one measurement, our KPI, our key performance indexes, is always billable time. And to our discussion about compensation, that is gonna be the number one measurement of every law firm.
Mhm.
And also, realization rates or collection rates, these are all things that are gonna drive everything. So how am
Right.
I, as a lawyer, gonna feel different? It's gonna go back to what we just said. It's the people aspect. So let's say I'm hitting my 1,900 hours, but I'm not doing 1 hour more than that.
Mhm.
And a lot of the young people today don't bill more than what is the minimum to be successful, right? It's still a success number because they have a whole other life. So the
Mhm.
firm has to work with the individual to motivate them enough to want to invest back into the firm, which is an investment in themselves. So part of it is helping the individuals understand the self investment that they do and how we
Mhm.
as a firm can support them in that so that they can be more successful. And that success will drive mental happiness through success, but as well as usually financial happiness through more income. I don't know if I answered
Right.
your question. I wanna
No, it did. And
I did
what
enough
I'm
of it.
hearing is that, you've gotta have the people side, to complement the accountability of, all the productivity metrics. And,
Right,
just an example from our own firm is, that we were completely objectively compensated. Uh, we are, but the culture of the firm is very supportive. So if you have eat what you kill on the production side and you have eat what you kill on the cultural side, that's, you know, uh, that's a pretty tough environment. But if you have, complementary culture that says, no, we're going to look out for you. If you're not getting enough work, we're going to help you get enough work.
right.
We're going to give you that training and mentoring. It softens it and, still allows for the accountability, which I think is really, really important. But adds the human element that is very sticky.
You know, let me share with you, I spoke at a conference, last week, and one of the, the conference was all it was not, United States lawyers, it was all lawyers
Hmm.
from Latin America, and one of the, women who was a managing partner at her firm, I loved this term. She called it, you ready for this? I'm gonna write an article on this, the emotional salary.
Mm, I love that.
Isn't that
Okay.
great?
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, "Oh my god, what do you mean by that, the emotional salary?" What do we pay our people in their emotional salary above their actual financial salary?
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna steal it. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna write a whole article on it. I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna interview you about it and say, in the United States, we need to implement this. What is the emotional salary?" And that's the firms that say family first, that if you
Hmm.
do need to leave for, kid sick or you have to take care of an elder in your family, that you don't get flack about it, right? That's part of
Right.
the emotional salary, and that's part of your productivity, that's part of your what is it that you're willing to give to your firm? The whole issue now with people not wanting to come back to work is because the emotional salary of being able to work from home makes them feel really good that they can pick up their kid from school, they can deal with that, and they can still get their billable work done. So that's the emotional salary that is of high value to them. And now a lot
Right.
of law firms are demanding people to come back to the office, and that's disrupting this emotional salary that people feel that they have
Yeah.
is being taken away. and people
right, and
don't like
that's
things that are taken away.
right. Yeah, that's gonna be a huge issue with all kinds of businesses, and,
Yes.
we've just started to wrestle with that.
Yep.
Um, okay, so, we like to think we wanna keep everybody, but sometimes you got have some turnover, so how do we recognize when it's okay for a lawyer to leave versus when we should really try to keep them?
Well, if they've made a decision to leave, there's probably not a whole lot you can do, to keep them.
Mhm.
So you wanna keep them before they even take the headhunter phone call. And that's creating that environment that is sticky, that the glue that you talked about. There's also something you could do, which is called a stay interview. We all know what an exit interview is. Stay interviews, which is a lot of the large law firms picked up on this a couple of years ago, um, where when they hired these coaches to come be full time in their firms, they were doing stay interviews,
Mm,
asking people, "What do you like about it here? What keeps you here?" Hearing from them, what is it that they get? And by you asking
right,
that question, it makes them more entangled with you. It's like doing client surveys at the end of a matter or during a matter with a client. If you say, what are we doing well? What should we keep doing? What would you like us to do differently? That client's like, "Wow, this is a good law firm. They really care about me." And that's
right.
what the firm
Mhm.
is demonstrating. So if they've already decided to leave, throwing more money at them just causes your firm a bigger problem, especially
Yeah,
then everybody's gonna say, "Well, wait, you're giving them 10,000 more dollars. I want 10,000 more dollars too."
yeah. I'm
So
leaving too, so give me more money.
correct. So
Right.
so it really does cause an issue, so you wanna do it before that happens. If
Yeah,
they
yeah,
turn down you could ask them, "How many headhunter calls do you get in a month?" You'd be surprised. 3rd year, 4th year, and 5th year associates get phone calls every day. Emails and phone calls every day from headhunters because there's such a need in all these firms, and that
yeah.
brand X is gonna go after your people because probably they have a lower salary than what they're already paying their people.
Yeah, I remember that when I was at that stage. I mean, s came out of law school in 1987 when you could get 50 offers if you wanted it.
Right.
So, there were a lot of hunter calls.
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody calls anymore. So
right. Well, you said you retired from that anyway.
yeah, exactly. I
But
so
when is it time to let go is if you go to that individual and you say, "We heard that you accepted an offer with brand X. Can we ask, what is it that they're offering you?" And find out, "Well, they're gonna let me work from home 100%." Okay?
right.
They're
Yeah.
paying 20,000 more dollars or, like,
Mhm.
find
Mhm.
out what the other firm is offering so that you can go back and determine you may not be able to keep that person. Maybe I get a corner office. That was used to be a big draw to get a
Right.
corner, or I'm gonna be made partner. You
Right.
didn't make me
Mm.
partner this year, so I'm gonna go to this new firm and get the title of partner because I feel that I deserve it.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of that emotional salary, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So if somebody does decide to leave, how do we make sure it's amicable and doesn't affect others in the firm?
Well, you should already every firm should already have an exiting attorney checklist,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure that all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, especially when, the client information and all of that. Hopefully, it is amicable and that they're choosing to leave and they're giving at least 2 weeks notice so that work can be transitioned, and for the firm not to be hostile against the individual, right? Because once you start becoming hostile, then they're more likely to do things that undermine the firm, and to say, "We are so happy for you going to the next stage of your career." You're
Right.
gonna go to this
Mhm.
firm and you're going to get to do first chair depots and first chair, litigation matters, right? We weren't able to do that for you here, and so we're so
Right.
happy for you,
Mhm.
and the door's open. The grass isn't always greener. Maybe you'll wanna come back, and you know what? That happens. Absolutely happens that people go off and then come back because then they realize how wonderful the environment was at this firm compared to especially if they're leaving for money. And when they leave just
Right.
for money, they find out that sometimes the money isn't worth it.
Yeah, and it's what I've noticed is that you can create kind of a network of your alumni uh, out in the community if you handle that well. And people may not come back, but they may recommend people
Yes.
coming back. They may send you clients, so there's nothing to be gained by burning the bridge. But every
Can I
yeah,
I'm sorry,
please.
go ahead. No, I wanna talk about alumni programs for a second because I started and ran an alumni program for a
Yeah,
large law firm that I worked with, and that's exactly and it was a piece of software that the firm purchased, and we actually, uh, inputted, all the previous attorneys that we still had information for, and then we did an actual campaign to go and find people who had left the firm 5 years before, 6, 7 years before, because if they had friends at the firm, those people know where so and so went, and maybe they went a house, maybe they left the
yeah.
practice, but we invited them all to come back and be part of that network, and we invited them to CLE programming that we offered
Mm,
and
mm,
to come back for picnics and events to keep that and that's so culture, right? That's your culture that keeps
right,
you so engaged so they can move on and feel good in their career that they have. But you know what? You still you still love me, you still care for me.
right,
That's a
right. That's a
beautiful thing.
great
So
point.
so
Yeah.
alumni network, I'm so glad you brought it up because I haven't even thought about that in years. But I literally started this alumni program.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool actually.
Mm. So when our mid-level associates and young partners are going to get lots of calls from headhunters, how should we talk to them about them, and how do we learn from them?
From the
From from
individual.
yeah, from the individual, right? So
So So let's be transparent about it. You're
hmm
now a 3rd year, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, junior, income partner. You're gonna start getting calls from headhunters. This is why we don't want you to take the calls. We
hmm
love you. You're of value to us. If you take the calls from the headhunters, we wanna hear what they're offering so that we can look at what we offer and see how
hmm
we can improve and grow and develop. So be transparent about it. And so that maybe they will come back to you and say, "Yeah, I got 2 headhunter calls this week, and both of them are offering me X."
right.
And
hmm
then your firm can go back and decide whether they wanna offer X as well. Maybe they do, maybe they don't.
Well, and don't you learn a lot from what they say is important, right? They
Yeah.
offered me, I'm a equity partner.
Right?
It's like, oh, so that's really important to this person, even if they're, a year or two below where we would normally offer that.
So
Um,
let's discuss that, right?
right. hmm
We don't make equity partners till about 10th year and you're in 8th year. So let's go over your numbers. Let's look at how much business you've
Right.
brought in. We expect $1 million of business and you're hovering around 500,000. What can we do to help you get to the $1 million? Right?
hmm
I mean, there's things that you can do if you have this information to help keep people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Now, what about when people do leave? Should we talk about exit interviews and how we should conduct those?
Right. I have an article on that. Couple years old, but I should send it to you and you can send it out.
Yeah.
Um, you
Please.
should absolutely do exit interviews, and here's the issue with exit interviews. Nobody's gonna talk to somebody in-house necessarily. So I do recommend if your company or your firm feels like they could use a third party to do it, to do that, because they're
hmm
more likely to be honest with a third party neutral person rather than somebody if they exit because of, a failure on the firm's part, maybe there's somebody who's very difficult to work with, and the firm knows that this person is difficult, and they've done nothing about it, and the person's lost 3 associates in the last 3 years, right? They're not gonna be honest and say, "This is why I left," because
Yeah.
you already
Yeah.
know that's why they're leaving, right?
Right.
So
Right.
exit interviews are very important, and you do learn some secrets of your firm. And I'll give you an exact example of an exit interview that I did. This is a large firm. I did over a year, 25% turnover in large firms is pretty natural. So I did a lot of exit interviews. I learned that the litigation group, when it came to presenting their team for salary and bonus, were very affirmative and advocated for their litigators, very,
Mhm.
very much so. And I learned that the transactional team didn't. That the
Mm.
transactional team were hard graders, let's call it that, hard
Yeah,
graders,
okay.
and
Mhm.
didn't push their people forward and promote and advocate. And so people in transactional group were leaving because they heard that if they were in the other group, maybe they would have made more money, and they're not gonna put up with this, and so they chose to leave the firm. And in an exit interview, you need to hear something 3 times for it to become a reality. If
Right.
one
Mhm.
person has one situation, it's not necessarily reality. 2 people says, maybe something's going on, but 3 people kinda seal it for you that if 3 people have had the same experience, there is something that needs to be addressed. It could be a personality issue of a
Got it.
partner or
Mhm.
systematic issue. This was a systematic issue that they weren't being, held up like the other team. Like, that was really important information for me to go back to the firm and say, "We need to address this."
Yeah,
And
makes
they did.
sense.
They did
Mhm.
address it.
Mhm. So we have another question from Matthew, which is going back to the headhunters calling with offers for people. He says, how do you substantiate those offers?
Oh, you can't. You don't know because first of all, the headhunters are gonna throw stuff out that may or may not be approved by the
Right,
law firm
right.
itself, right? They may think that they're gonna be able to go back to the firm and say, "Well, this person's got all this great stuff and you need to, offer him a $150,000 salary, and he's
Right.
making 68 right now." Um,
Hmm.
you don't know that firm's gonna be willing to do that. So
Right.
because the headhunters have their own, confidentiality contracts, you're not gonna be able to necessarily get it. But if a headhunter has called multiple of your people, like they're dipping into your litigation group or your transactional group or your real estate group, and everybody's sort of hearing the same thing, that sounds like a bit of a way to substantiate that
Right.
this
Right.
headhunter, because you don't know the firm. See, that's part of the issue too. It's not the firm that's coming after the person. You won't know the firm name, but you'll know the headhunter. And by the
Right.
way, you can reach out to the headhunter directly and say, "We
Yeah.
want
Hmm.
you to stop calling our people."
Mm. Hmm.
You
Which
can do that.
does that work? Do they?
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, the headhunter can call somebody at home if they have their home phone,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's only if they call them at work that
I
it would be.
see.
And a lot of times people are working, so they do get the phone calls at work.
Yeah. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, we have just a few minutes left, and we might go a bit over the hour. So I hope people are able to stay, or you'll get this on the recording. But I do want to finish up with a few more questions. But talk about what are the best practices to build loyalty with virtual employees?
Ah. If I had the actual real answer to this, I would be very wealthy. Um, every law firm is struggling with this. Every corporation I was listening to, on the radio driving in, the other day, uh, the big companies are having the exact same problem.
Right.
Because and it was all talking about the water cooler, coming into the office and what's missed.
I
It is
think I
really.
was listening to the same radio
Were you? Were you?
broadcast. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So it's almost impossible. So it has to be the intentionality of the individuals, bosses or supervisors, to offer the training, offer the mentoring, go have coffee, someplace in between if you're not gonna come to the office. Humans need that interpersonal contact with each other, and we are
Hmm.
not gonna develop and grow just virtually. We really aren't. And this is why the kids that had all that remote work, are really behind in their education
Mm,
and
yes.
in their social skills. Oh my god, you should see these kids in law school right now. I just went to Duke, a month or so ago, and they just don't have the skills because
Hmm.
they graduated college online.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's very difficult to in the full hybrid environment to create it. So that's why a lot of law firms and corporations are saying 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days. Please come to the office. We wanna see you, touch you, feel you, know that you're there alive. Let us show our love and affection for you, all of that within the parameters of what's acceptable behavior. Um, um, law firms are listening. Um, it's just the human reality.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. Everybody's trying to figure this out. I think about putting my lean law hat here on for a moment. We have um, people in 3 different countries and 7 different states, and like a little core here in our hometown. But it's really challenging to try and pull all that together into a company.
Yes.
But that's how almost everybody, that's how you build a software company these days, that's for sure.
Well, and my daughter works for a training company, an
Hmm.
online training company, which is 100% online, has always been, an online company, but 4 times a year, um, they bring the leadership team together multiple times a year, but they bring the entire company together, and it's small, it's a startup, I think there's 50 employees, 4 times a year, and actually, the
Mm,
1st week in December, they're all going to Mexico City for their, annual retreat.
very
So
nice.
they
Yeah.
can
Hmm.
see each other, do not role playing, do, experiential activities together and,
Yeah.
team building activities. It's important.
Yes, absolutely. So, um, just to wrap up, so I never learned anything about how to be a managing partner in law school.
Yeah.
Um, so how do I get the resources and coaching I need to be successful?
Well, this is why when I hung out my shingle, I got phone calls. I think back to, Matthew's original question is outside coach. I think that being a managing partner, you don't have anybody in your firm unless you have a previous managing partner that's still there and can work with you and directly help you. There are outside organizations. Harvard has a whole program for managing
Mm,
partners. If you have, I think, $35,000, you can go to that. There's other companies that have other types of training.
that's cheap for Harvard. That's
Yeah, 35,000. Okay, all right, well, good. Good to know, good to know. Um, I actually have been to that training because I was at a law firm and because I was the director of professional development, I could be a fly on the wall, which was fantastic. Um, so you have to join the meetings that happen maybe in your community. I have a client in New Jersey where all of the managing partners in this one community in New Jersey, they come together on a monthly
mm,
basis and have breakfast and they
mm.
share their woes with each other. And so that's
Did
fantastic.
did you put that together for them
No,
or
no, 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 no,
okay,
no. This is something that they do. Um,
okay.
I just went to a Thomson Reuters. It was a COO, CFO event in New York. I spoke at that actually 2 weeks ago. Um, I don't know if Thomson Reuters does a managing partner event like that. Maybe they do, but anything of that nature is and create it. If it doesn't exist, like this New Jersey one,
Right.
my client was just a member and somebody else, um, he's a 2nd generation managing partner. The founder partner is now, semi-retired, so he took over, um, and he got invited into that, so it wasn't something that he had created.
Yeah. No, it's something,
Read, read. Read, read, read,
right.
read. There's so many good leadership books out there.
Mm. So we just started a community an online community for on best in class financial performance, and
Done.
we hope to create groups like that of
Yeah.
managing partners who can have a place where they can go to talk about these issues because my sense is it's a really lonely
Yes. Yes.
it's a lonely job because
Yes.
you know
There's a group in New York, so Tabish, it's called the Tabish Group. They are a software company. They don't do your type of software. They do actually the technology. I don't know what they do, but they have of their client base, because I've spoken a couple times to them, it's the managing partners of their firms that they do the technology for, and they
Mm.
run their own, monthly or maybe every other
Oh,
month.
nice.
Yeah, and then there's an accounting firm called Withum
Yeah,
Withum
we know
that's
with them. Hmm.
right, they're in New York, and then they have their meetings. I've spoken at their meetings as well. So your providers, right, for the people on the call, your providers, like Lane Law, might have something, and you just need to ask to be invited, and you
Hmm.
can start building your own network of
Awesome.
people whose ears to chew on and say, "Oh my god, I have this problem, can you help me?"
Exactly. Well, thank you. We should probably wind it up there. We've run a little over time, but and I could go on all day. Um, but and I think we've answered any questions. If there's, are there any other questions in the audience? Give just a second for anybody to pipe up. So I'm not seeing any. Very nice. So we're going to send you an email after the webinar. It's going to have some more resources. Of course, the slides and recording, the ability to get the law firm financial report card, and to join the community that I mentioned. So I hope that you'll come in and join us.
I'm gonna
And
send you that exit interview article also.
all right, appreciate that. Yeah, we'll pass that along as well. Thank you, Sharon. And I believe we have Sharon's email on her here if you guys are, if anybody's interested um, in the type of coaching that she does.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
very nice. There's a little background here on the uh, how we built the report card and where the numbers come from. And that's the end. So Sharon, thank you so much for joining me. And it's always a pleasure. And we will now adjourn the webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gary, for having me.